Today we're going to start a new section in AutoCAD where we've left off last time we did blocks. This time we're going to move into some fancier, pieces of how to use drawings and how we would use them in a normal like consulting firm or for the DOT. And it's more of a production quality piece, and it's getting into paper space versus model space. And I'm going to open up the file first. You're going to get a couple warning messages. Just ignore each of those. So we're going to ignore the SHX. If there's a thing, another alert that comes up and says that there's a missing XREF, just ignore that as well. That's a standard default. Ignore those things. Now through that, this is what you should be seeing then once it pops up, right? And this is a road design project, and this is in model space, and that's what we've been working with in the past, right? Today we're going to learn about how to move over into paper space and how to do our edits in there. All right, and the difference is model space is like you're really in this drawing, right? You can grab any of these lines, you can modify them, you could add stuff in here, right? Model space is like in the real world. You're outside and you're working in the real world, and that's model space, right? Paper space is, it's, as the name sounds, that paper in paper space means that's the sheet. All right, so let's flip over to that. Here's sheet 1, right? It even calls it a sheet. Through there, that's its default name, and this looks like the title block, right? When we did this before, we used the title block as a block, right? And we used it inside model space. We put it into our normal drawing, and that's not where we normally put it. We normally use a title block like that in a sheet file in paper space, right? And so this is paper space. It's even white, looks like a piece of paper, right? Through there, you can still see that road design stuff, but now you've got the title block going around it, and you've got some text. And if we hover over it, you can see it highlights, right? So that means that's in paper space. So these items, these callouts, are in paper space, right? And the title block is in paper space, right? But if I hover over any of these line elements that I just saw a minute ago in model space, they're not in here, right? This is a picture. And so the way we like to look at it is we create these windows, we call them a viewport, and you look through that window into the real world. And that's what we're doing here, right? This is, you're inside the house, the paper is the wall, and you've got a window. Here's our window. And we're looking out the window into the real world. And what we see is model space, right? So we're inside, we're in paper space. We look through a viewport and we see the model in the real world, the model space piece, right? So that's one way to look at that. And if we double click inside that, okay, now I've got this blue border around it. That's showing you where the window frame is, all right? And now everything inside of that is what I just saw before in model space. Right? That's at the real world. Now that I've double clicked in there, I have gone through the window. It's kind of like Alice in the Looking Glass, right? We have gone through and we're in a different realm. This is the parallel universe, I guess, of the real world. And I can touch stuff now, right? Now if I'm hovering over these line pieces or the line work and stuff from that drawing, right now I can interact with it, because I've actually gone outside through the window and I can still see where the frame is. And what we do with this is we can change that scale. Like I can make this much bigger. I can move things around if I wanted to, right? Notice the red stuff, the text that was in paper space, it didn't move because it's like it's drawn on the window. It's like you've got a dry erase marker and you just wrote on the window, right? That's what this stuff is, because it was in paper space. But I'm actually manipulating things over in model space. Now, just moving things around, nothing over here in model space is actually changing, but that's my view of it is, right? So in that viewport, I can change how I see it. I can change what scale I see it at. I can back way up. I can zoom way in through there. And before I forget, right, a lot of times when we zoom in, things look weird. Type in regen, R-E-G-E-N, and hit spacebar, enter, right? And okay, it fixed the scale. It redrew everything. That's what regen does. It means it regenerated everything, and it's going to look a lot better now. And usually this doesn't look great right through there. But if everything looks goofy, if you get some really huge text that's blocking everything else, type regen first, right? through there. If the radiuses and stuff or circles you've got look clunky and like they're made out of segments, not a smooth circle, type regen. Right, that'll redraw it. And AutoCAD doesn't automatically redraw stuff every time you zoom in and out, because that takes up processing time and power. And so if you're just doing a quick zoom in and then you're going to zoom back out, it doesn't, I think its default is it doesn't automatically regenerate everything within the drawing. You can see it, but it's going to save some of its processing power. If you've got a really big file, it can take you quite a while to regen, right? If you've got over 100 meg file, which you do sometimes, it'll take quite a while to regen. Now, this is a small one, so we don't have any trouble with that. And so we can just hit regen and, like I say, it'll look better. So as you're working today, that's going to be a popular command. I put a note in the instructions just to make sure you notice that. You may not have used it much in the past through there, but that's regen right through that. So now I'm still in model space. You can see, I know I'm in model space because I've got this dark blue border going around, right? And to get out of model space, there's a lot of ways to do it, right? Down here, it says I'm in model, and if I click this, now I'm back in paper space, right? That blue border went away. Now, when I pan, holding down my center button on the mouse and moving right, the whole piece of paper moves, right? And when I zoom, the whole sheet of paper moves. But what's inside the window didn't change relative to the title block. It's stuck, right? Because I'm still in paper space, and it's fixed when I'm in paper space. If I want it down here, see the paper, if I flip that and I'm back in model, now when I zoom or pan, I'm only zooming and panning the stuff in the real world that I'm seeing through the window. Okay, so that's and it's, believe me, it is really easy to forget which one you're in, and let me give you an example, right? You zoom way in, right, and you're in paper space, and you don't remember that you're in, right, now I'm in model. You don't remember you're in model. I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to zoom back out and see where I'm at. And you zoom out, like, oh, crap. I didn't want to do that. So you got to undo, Control Z, right, or U a bunch of times, right? Let's get back in there. Now switch it to paper space. Now zoom out. Okay, that's back where I wanted, right? This happens all the time. So don't feel bad if you forget which one you're in, right? So you can double click inside it. That also puts you in model space. If you double click outside the blue border, puts you back in paper space, right? And you can always check, because down here it's telling you which one you are, right? Through there. So that's one way to do it. I think you can also type in M space, right? And you can type in P space. If you prefer using the text commands, you can do it that way, right? So there's 3 different ways to move back and forth between model and paper space. And so this is the big idea, right? And why do we care? Why do we want paper space and model space and all that? Well, we'll find out today how this is useful. The main thing is that when let's say this is an intersection design sheet, right, for a road project, right? On this sheet, maybe I want it to be at a certain scale. I'm going to show where all of the traffic signal stuff is going to be, right? I'm going to use that exact same model design piece, this intersection, right? And maybe I've got a different sheet that I'm showing where all the striping is, all the pavement markings are. But that's going to be at a different scale, right? And I can do that because they can both reference the model. They can both reference real world in 2 different sheets. That's kind of cool, at 2 different scales. And if I put all of my text and all of my dimensions in paper space, then it doesn't interfere with the other one. Now, I know before when we were doing dimensions, we dimension in model space. Well, that was just practice, right? I will tell you now that you should never put dimensions in model space. Okay, maybe occasionally, but almost never, 95% of the time, don't ever put notes or dimensions in model space. All that goes in paper space, right? And it'll work just fine, right? I didn't practice this before, but let's see if we can throw in a dimension here. Let's do an aligned dimension, and let's jump down here. And I'm in paper space, but now it's letting me snap to things here in model space. So if I wanted to dimension the width of this road, I'm in the wrong. It's not a very good. It did. I'm in the wrong scale. I'd have to fix my annotation scales and all that because it looks super tiny. But look, it did it, right? And it's it's relative and it moves around. It's in paper space. And if I jump back into model, right, it doesn't move because it's still stuck in paper space, right? So, so just to prove that, yes, dimensions and everything else will work just fine in paper space. And that's where we put almost all the dimensions. Rarely do we dimension anything in model space. And that's because we don't want, if we dimensioned those, the lane widths and the roadway width here, right, okay, that looks great in this drawing, this intersection layout drawing. But again, if I were to have another sheet that was looking at the exact same intersection, maybe I don't want to see those dimensions. If I'm showing the striping, I don't want to see those dimensions, right? And so that's why we don't put the dimensions and callouts generally in the model space. Now I will put, occasionally I have a layer that I turn off when I print, and it's just for me in design, and I'll put my own notes and sometimes my own dimensions and stuff in model space, but no one else sees that. Right, that's just what they call a scratch layer. And so I just use my scratch layer so that as I'm designing a road or something, I can leave myself notes in the drawing. And then later when we do sheets, no one else sees that. It's a non-print layer. You can set in your layer properties, you can make a layer that's a non-print layer. I can see it, but it'll never show up on a plan sheet, luckily. And that's a smart thing to do if it's your note sheet, layer, to make sure it's non-print. Otherwise, you'll accidentally print it sometimes, and that's kind of embarrassing if you've got stupid little notes written all over about where things are going on. Right? So that's paper space and model space, right? Model space is the real world. Paper space, we create a viewport. We can look through the wall or make like a window, and we can see the real world outside. Right? So if we double click, there's our window. We can see now the real world, and we can actually move it around and change it. So that's the big concept in this lesson, is getting you guys used to paper space, because all of your plotting, all of your plotting, I can't think of any reason why you would never, or you wouldn't, all of your plotting is going to be out of paper space. Right? Before we did maybe some basic stuff in paper space in a real simple plot, but most of it was still in model. Right? In a production environment, in a real job, everything is going to be in paper space. Right? Your title block, all that stuff is in paper space, because the reason they invented all this was to make our lives easier as we're plotting. Right? And we can reuse this model view multiple times in different sheets, and all we have in here is the base line work and design stuff, right? And then the real text in here is different line types. This is a water line, that's a gas line, right? And sometimes surveyors will leave notes in here, but we usually hide all that when we plot. All right, so see, there's no dimensions, there's no callouts in the model space, and that's how we like it. And then we put all of that over here in paper space when we flip to paper space, right? And I've done projects where we've got 100 tabs down here of all different layers, because they're all different sheets, and so we'll plot them all out through there. And you can, there's fancy ways to do all of them at once and send them to the plotter, but that's it may seem like, okay, yeah, paper space, we got a sheet, but this is the main production piece, right? And so you have a single design down here in model space, and all of your design is hiding in model space. Right, but you may have a sheet that shows this part, then you have another sheet that shows this part, another sheet that shows this part, based on whatever scale you've got. You may have 20 sheets that are referencing into this single model. This is a pretty small one. This is just an intersection, right? And that's why we do that. That's why we have these paper space ones. And if you get an internship this summer and they ask you to fix drawings, I can guarantee you will be fixing them in model, or all the notes and the dimensions are going to be in paper space, right? And so this is why we're teaching you this to you now. It's one of the reasons is so you can use this tool. Like when you do senior design, you're definitely going to need to know this tool, but also to help you out in these internships and in these jobs you may be getting through there, to understand what the difference is. This used to be a big question. My predecessors at the place I last worked used to ask prospective interns is, what do you know about CAD? And if they said they knew something about it, this was their big question. What about paper space? Explain paper space to us. And guess what? Like 90% of them couldn't. So don't be that guy. You know what paper space is now, and the right answer is Paperspace is the sheet, and that's where I put all my dimensions, and all my callouts are on Paperspace. Right, so that is the proper answer for that. Model space is just all of your design pieces, right? And that's all of the real world design things. Paperspace is the actual presentation that we're going to print out and give to the contractor or give to the client when we're done. So, long discussion because this is a super big deal and important, right? So this time, today, it's a little different. We're not doing the little single command, do this, do that kind of stuff. This time, I'll scoot this over. Now we're running, you've got this in-class assignment instruction sheet, which is posted on Blackboard. You're going to download this, and you're just going to follow these instructions through. Right, so you do need this through there, right? The instructions are not written in a drawing this time, and you're going to find out why, because we're kind of getting off chart, or we're getting a little crazy this time, and we're all over the place, right? But this is maybe more of a real world problem, and we're going to work through. So I'm going to work through these instructions, right? I may not always scoot this back over here so you can see, because my screen's kind of space is a little limited on that, but this is where it is, right? So download the PDF, open it up, and maybe even read through the instructions while I'm doing this tutorial for you, so you can kind of follow along where I'm at. Okay, so that was that guy. I'm going to move him back over here to the other side. Through that. So the first thing it says is download the drawing. Right, we did that. We opened it. Yep, we did that. And so we're in model space. Great. Now we're supposed to go over here to sheet 1 tab. And that's Paperspace. We've seen this like 14 times now, but come on, open up. There we go. So there we are. And the first thing it tells us to do is zoom in on the intersection. So I'm going to enter model space. I'm going to double click. I can see I get the blue border. I'm in model space. I'm going to zoom in on the intersection. Okay, great. All right. And do we just zoom in until it looks good? Well, that's not how we do it in engineering, right? We want to scale. And so the first thing it asks us to do is set the scale of this viewport. And that's awesome because all of our drawings in engineering are to scale. So how do I do that? Well, down here in your toolbar in the bottom of the screen, this is your current scale. This is your active scale. Right. If you don't see this scale bar down here, you may have to turn it on. And you do that from over here in the far right corner in this customization. And here's your viewport scale. Right. I can turn that sucker on and off. And a lot of you, we had trouble before with we were doing stuff by dynamic input or not dynamic input. All right. You can turn that button on and off up here. This is how you turn on and off all the stuff you see along the bottom in these toolbars. So just make sure viewport scale is on. It is by default, but just in case for some reason everybody had to download this, and there's probably a bunch of different versions hanging out there. So this is our viewport scale. It should be on already. If it's not, go over here to the far right corner and turn it on. And we are going to, the instructions say to set the scale of this viewport to 1 inch equals 30 feet. So let's hit that. Oh, look at that. It immediately bounced, right? And we are now, it's telling you are locked in at 1 to 30, right? If I scroll around now, I've screwed it up. See, now my scale is this, whatever that means. I want to go back to 1 to 30. There we go. And now, without scrolling in and out, I'm just going to move that guy until he's centered. Right, still 1 to 30. Everything looks great, right? And now I'm going to get out of model space, go back to Paperspace, double click. All right, so now blue border is off. I'm in Paperspace. If I zoom in and out, the whole sheet zooms in and out now. Great, I'm in Paperspace through there. So that was instruction 4. So that's return to Paperspace. 5, now we need to fix these callouts. So look, I moved that intersection. These callouts live in Paperspace. They don't live in model space, and so they didn't move when I moved the rest. And how do I move them? I just click them, right? And you can just grab these suckers and move them around. So there we go. This is supposed to be pointing to this dark line, right? And to see these a little bit better, there is line weight scales, and this is the button down here, show or hide line weight. And I think the default is it hides it, but sometimes it's easier to figure out where you are if you show it. I'm going to turn that on. Ooh, look at that. All right, so the weights, the line weights that you plugged into your layer manager, you don't always see them because sometimes they get confusing, and you can turn them off. and that's how you turn off the line weight. Here's how you turn them on, right? And like the center lines, we use these great big bold lines. Sometimes that's just a little too busy. All right, that's a little bit busy. Maybe if I'm doing some delicate drafting in here and trying to snap things very carefully, I want to turn that off. Okay, now I can, everything is set to the minimum thickness. You can see it, but that's not its true plot thickness. All right, so I'll turn that back on. I'm turning it on now because that shows this edge of pavement really well for me. And I want to snap this arrow until it's right on that line. How's that, right? So we had to move these callouts, escape, to bounce back, all right, because I'm at 1 to 30 scale, and not everything. Am I still 1 to 30? I am. All right. Got scared there. That looked kind of big. Okay, and I'm going to move this guy over here. Click once and then just drag it and click again, and now I'm going to grab the grip, snap him to that line. There we go. All right, this one, that one looks pretty good. I didn't move it so much. I'm going to just snap this guy back to that line. There we go. All right, and fix this one. Yeah, okay, he's supposed to be back there. Let's move him down a little bit. Let's go. All right, so we can see where everything is, and now I'm going to fix him. Okay, I'm in. All right, looks good, right? Yeah, close enough. So I'm going to save this so I don't forget. Now it should auto save every 15 minutes, and it'll save it to a backup file called whatever your file name is .bak. All right, but don't forget, every time you like finish something, just click save, and then and make sure you're not, if you're using the remote access into the Red Lab, don't save it to the desktop there. You'll have to save it to your H drive or the S drive, otherwise it won't be there the next time you get back in. All right, do that. All right, so that was step 5. I fixed the callouts, right? And now it says go to, this is step 6, right-click the Sheet 1 tab and go to Page Setup Managers. Down here, Sheet 1 tab, right-click, and I go to Page Setup Manager. And we looked at this briefly before when we did plotting. All right, so I'm going to bring this up, and which sheet am I going to look at? Well, I'm looking at Sheet 1, that's Sheet 1, right? So I'm going to click Modify, that's the right one. It's telling me that it can't find DesignJet 1055 CM. Well, no, you can't, because we don't own that plotter. That's a great big a monster plotter. So we're going to come up here, and it's going to tell us now how to modify this. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to pick our plotter to be a DWG to PDF.pc3. So that guy. And what this does is, instead of sending whatever we plot to the printer directly, like we did this in class, we sent it to the printer in 150 last time. We're going to send it to a PDF. We're just making a PDF out of this, right? And then you're going to upload the PDFs, and that's what your product is for today's in class, is just a bunch of PDFs you're going to upload. So I switch that to there. What else does it tell us to do? Get that. Now we're going to do scale line weights. That's just down here. So I'm going to, yes, when you plot, scale the line weights so they look right. That's good. All right. Through there, and then under plot style, which is up here in the upper right corner, now we want to select ACAD.CTB. There it is. All right, so that's the plot style. It defines how all these lines, and by color or sometimes by weight, how they're going to look when this thing plots out. Right, through there. If you want to see what it's going to look like, hit preview. And so that's what ACAD.CTB, that's what it's going to do for us. Hit escape. All right, and back here. Through there. Click OK to exit the manager. Great. So I have defined that for the sheet. It will remember that. So every time I want to come back into Sheet 1 to do a plot, it will remember that. So I'm going to click Close, and I'll be out of that. All right, now we need to plot it. Right, and I can plot it. Let's go up here, find the little printer icon, click Plot. Oh, it brings up that same one, right? And it remembered everything, right? ACAD.CTB, drawing to PDF, scale line weights. And now I just click OK. It's going to ask me for a name, and I think you're supposed to name it your last name, and then Lesson 9, Plot 1, or something like that. Is there a space in there? Yeah, there we go. Save it. It's creating it. It's going to take it a second. Okay, and over here it jumped up in my PDF viewer, so there it is. All right, and yeah, it looks all right. Okay, And the nice part is, you know, just how once you get that page set up, it automatically plots the right size, and it actually, if you plot full size, it'll be to scale, because we've already set the scale, and it's going to be a 1 inch to 30 feet scale when it comes out. So that's cool. Right, we got that all nicely set up, and that ends step 7. All right, so now we're going to go back into this a few more times. Just follow the instructions. This is step 8. You're going to do page setup manager. Sheet 1, yes, I'm going to modify sheet 1. You're going to change the different plot styles, and you're going to save each one of those, and so you can see what the difference looks like. Right, so you're going to change it the next time. It's going to be grayscale, and then the last time it's going to be monochrome. That'll be the last one. All right, so I'll let you guys do that. You can have that fun on your own. I don't need to show you that. We did it once. All right, through there. So I'm skipping down now to step 10. So this is VP clip, which is viewport clip. And so, you know, we're looking into a viewport, right? So this blue line is the viewport. And it is hidden. In this case, it's not always. In this case, it's hidden right behind. Go back to paper space. Right behind the border line. And we did that because we wanted it to hide, right? We don't want people to see it when we plot it where our viewport line is. And you can hide viewports other ways too, but we just tucked it in behind the actual border line of the title block, right? Which is a block there. And so that's why you don't see it otherwise. And people, it makes it, you know, a prettier drawing. That's why it's hidden down there. But we have to find that. We have to use this VP clip command. And to use it, we have to know where the edge of that border is. And I know it's hiding underneath this inner, that's kind of an orangey yellow line color there. It's hiding underneath that, so I know where it is. And to find it is there's a special selection technique where you hold down the shift key and the space bar at the same time. It'll toggle through. If there's multiple things on top of each other, it'll toggle through each one every time you hit that until you get it. So let's start the command VP clip. Okay, select the viewport. Oh, well, see, if I hover over it, I know it's right here. It's right under this. But hovering under that, it's not selecting it, so I'm going to hold down the shift and the space bar. Do it again. Oh, it almost had it. Let's zoom in even a little. There we go. Now I've got it. So that is the actual frame of the viewport. Clicked it. Got it. Okay. And now down here, it's asking you, how do you want to clip it, right? This is what the command does. It clips viewports. And we're going to select polygonal. So and now it asks me where I want to start and end. And so you get to draw a box. And basically, or as many, it doesn't have to be a box. You can draw a pentagram if you want through there. And we're gonna box in the center piece right through that. So let's do that. I'm just gonna start. Doesn't really matter where. Let's just draw this in, and this is going to become the clipping boundary. And like this last one, you can snap to that, or you can, down here you can see it says close. If I just hit C, it closes the box, and boom, we're done. All right, and it clipped it. It clipped that whole viewport. The border is no longer out here. This is now the border of that viewport. It just clipped it off. All right, do that. So you may be able to see, okay, if I wanted to do a detailed view of one piece of this drawing, I could blow it up at a higher scale and put it over here in its own little viewport. Right? That's how we can use these multiple viewports on a single screen like that. Right, and so that's the polygonal one. You can use other shapes, right? In fact, that's the next step. So that's 10 and 11 now. Well, let's try. What if we want to make this circular? Okay, this box is boring. We want to do something exciting. Let's put a circle in here. So here's my circle. I'm going to center this thing right at the intersection. I'm going to draw it out here. How's that for a circle? All right. Through that. So I just drew it. Okay, looks kind of dumb. But now if I do VP clip and select the viewport or what you want to clip to, I'm select the viewport, sorry. All right, and now what do I want to click to? I'm going to go to that. Okay, so there, switched it. So you had to select the viewport first, then you select the shape that you want the new viewport to be in, and there it is. So I drew that circle first, selected the viewport, and then I clicked on this guy to get this into a circular run, right? So there we go. Isn't that kind of cute? I don't know if it's cute, but anyway, it is what it is. Right through there. Now now we're moving down, and we are at point 12, and so we're supposed to move all of this stuff. We are supposed to move all. Oh, we don't want to do that. There we go. Let's use the box. We're supposed to move all this over to the side, so I'm just going to select it all and drag it over. Move all that over. There we go. Now, if you just select the circle and move it like this, you only move the viewport and you didn't move the text. So that's why I put the box around everything, so I moved it all at once. Just saved me one step. Do what I do here. Otherwise, if you just move the circle first, then you're going to have to manually drag over the callouts. That's fine. Right? It works both ways. Right through there. So we did that. Now we're going to make a new viewport over here, right? So we're going to show something else on this sheet. We're going to have a two-part sheet here. So let's use the viewports command to create a new viewport. There's viewports. And we've practiced with the ports before a little bit, and viewports on our screen. This is similar. So we get the single. I'm just going to do a single box. So I'm going to click single, click OK. I'm going to draw my new viewport over here. I am making a new window in my sheet to look into the world of model space. All right, so that's what's, and when it comes up automatically and puts you in there. And so I'm going to double click in there, and that looks like crap, right? You know, this is zoomed out so far. These are elements that are in there that you don't normally see. Our drawing is actually right in here, and this is where this regen command is going to become super helpful, right? So if I zoom in, it still looks like, you know, dog's breakfast, I guess they would say. If I type in regen, it'll get a little bit better. Okay, and I can see this is starting to be that intersection over here, right? Through there, and actually when I hover over stuff, it highlights it in the other viewport too. All right, so then this text is all associative sized, and so to reassociate it, we've got to do regen again. Okay, so you can see now I've got two different views and two different scales, so forth. Well, this is not where you're supposed to be. We want to show one of the cross sections. For this road over here on the right side, and the instructions are here in the. I'll back out here a little bit. Over here is all these cross sections, and the grids scale up so they look better once you get zoomed in regen. So don't get freaked out that there's a mess over here. There is a bit of a mess. Follow the instructions, will be fine. And so we're in model space. I'm going to do zoom center, Z spacebar, then C spacebar. So I'm in zoom center. And what center point do I want? And so I can click something as the center point, or I can give it the coordinates. And I'm going to give it coordinates. And I've got them written down here. So it's 25669, comma 2327998. Right. We hit enter. What's my magnification level? Let's go 100. And oh, that looks awful. Okay, regen. Let's hope it. Okay. That's my cross section, and that's about what it's supposed to look like. All right. Not too bad. You can zoom back out a little bit. I like it more like this. All right. But anyway, so there's my cross section there. Yeah, it's not terrible. All right, if I go back to paper space, it locks that. Now I can actually resize that box. Right, look at this. I can resize that viewport if I think it looks better, and then get back into model space, scoot that up, and make it look pretty. How's that? Okay. And I'm going to go back to paper space. Now I'm locked in. So there we go. So now I've got this nice circle detail. The intersection over here is cross section. Both of these viewports are looking into different parts of the model space, of what's in the model space. So that it's not, it looks very different, but it's actually looking, you can see this is a nice cross section view. All these things, or both of these things, are in that model tab. If you were to hunt around for them, you can find them in there. All right, through that. So that brings us up through 15, or 14 actually. 15, you're supposed to add some text. You know how to add text. Actually, we need to switch. Sorry. Oh, I'm clicking all the wrong buttons. All right. We need to flip our layer first. We're supposed to be, what's it tell you to be? Make layer text active. I guess you're going to put text on layer text. There. All right. So now text is active. All right, this is in the Home tab ribbon. And we made text active. Now I'm going to go to Annotate tab using current. Yes. I'm going to click on multi-line text. Drop this in here. And I'm supposed to write in intersection in all caps. Oh, it's too small. It says to make it a height of 1. So I'll go up here. Make this a height of 1. There. Oh, that looks pretty good. Right. Drag this down, line it up. There we go. All right, so I'm putting a label on it. You'll also do one over here that says cross section. Okay. And again, all of this stuff is living in paper space, and we're just viewing through these windows what's in the model space, but we're not actually adding any of this text into model space, so it's not screwing it up the next time we want to use it for some other drawing. All right, so that's I'll let you do the one that says cross sections over here, and that brings us up through 15, and you're going to make a plot now at this point called plot 4. Through there. All right, and then finally we're going to make our own new sheet, right? Okay, you got to move this sheet around and make a bunch of modifications to it, but isn't it more exciting to make your own? Yeah, it sure is. So to add a new layout and a new sheet, we're just going to come down here to this little plus symbol, click that guy. Come on. There it is. All right, and now we got a new one called layout 1. Right, and it's going to come up. This is its default. It's an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. It just shows everything in here. Kind of crazy looking, right? Stuff through there. So we want to center the viewport intersection. You don't know it, but the intersection is buried under this, and all this text automatically scales up, so it always looks the same size on your screen. But when we're zoomed out like super far right now in this model port or viewport, and looking at the model space, and so when it's trying to keep that text all that same size, that's all you see. You don't see the road underneath it anymore. So yeah, it's zoom extents. Okay, well, I was in paper space still. Let me get into model space, zoom extents. Okay, and the road, I can tell you right now, the road is down buried under this stuff, and we're going to zoom in. And then we're going to use our favorite new command, regen. Come on, regen. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. Regen again. And we're going to do this a few times. Okay, now you're starting to see, here's the intersection. And every time we regen, it regenerates how big that text is. And so it looks proportional for the sheet. And then it doesn't obscure every single thing we're trying to look at. All right, so that's not good. Let me back out a little bit. How's that? Let's try that. How's that? Regen. Okay. I'm going to go back to paper space so I don't accidentally move things around. All right, through there. And now it's telling us to make this a scale 1 to 100 scale. So I'm back in here, over here. I'm going to jump down to 1 to 100. Oh, that was pretty close. All right, before. Back to paper space to be safe. Through there. And now we're going to create a title block around it. Actually, it wants us to freeze all the layers you see in here. And so if we haven't used them, I'm going to zoom in for a second so I can see it. Let me actually zoom into paper too. How's that? So now back to model space. All right. All we want is to see the edge of pavement, which is this black line. Shoulders, which is this purple line. And right of way, which is blue. Right. And so there's a few ways we can do that. We can come back over here to home. Here's our layer stuff, right? We can freeze layers. If you remember that in that chapter, we can freeze stuff. Everything you click turns off. That whole layer turns off. And so anything that's on that layer gets shut off. So you can do that a lot. Here's a house, goodbye hatching, goodbye contour elevations, and then so forth. All right, you can do it that way. You can also use the layer isolate command up here, which is this one. We're going to isolate, so anything you click, we want this, and we want this layers. Hit spacebar. Okay. It isolated. Isolate means the only things you're going to see now were those things you originally clicked. All right, and I wanted one more thing, so we're going to back up. We're going to do this again. Layer isolate. And that, and that, and that, and I'm going to put the center lines in there. So both those center lines. How's that? I think that's everything. Nope. All right. Well, still didn't like it. Well, we're going to move on through there. And so I'm going to do regen. Okay. And I need to switch this back to 1 to 100 scale. And I'm going to move that intersection right into the center. Right there. So that's good enough for now. And we're going to do paper space. Come on. There we go. Paper space, and now we're locked in and everything's safe. Right. I'm going to save it again. So don't forget. And now you're going to make your own. Sorry, this is the sheet, and it says nothing around it. So let's make our own title block, right? Why not? And I'm going to make mine rectangle. Use the rectangle command. Oh, I'm on the wrong layers. Let's check for layers here. I'm going to use, does it tell you which layer to use? SH border. So where's SH border? If I scroll, here's SH border. Going to click that. Now it's the active layer. Now I'm going to use the rectangle command. I'm going to point. I'm going to do dimensions. I want this to be 10 by 7.5. If I remember right. Click. Okay. Now I've got it. So here's my first border. Is that where I want it to be? All right. So this dotted line that goes around here, this is your plot area. And so right now you can't really plot outside of that. So anything outside of that is not going to show up on the sheet when it plots to the printer. I'm going to line this thing up about right on top of it. How's that? All right. And that's that. It's things your printer can't do less than a half inch on the margin. That's what that dotted line is set to. All right, through there. All right, so I drew my first big thick line to go around the outside border. And on the instructions, it tells you to draw your own thing in there. So I'm just going to make up my own title block. I'm going to put a little simple line across the bottom. How's that? And I'm going to throw some text in here. But I want to change layers before I do text. Let's do SH text. So SH means sheet. So this is sheet text. That sounds right. SH border is the sheet border. I'm going to do multi-line. Going to drop this in here, and I think I'm supposed to say something like CE151 Lesson 9. How's that? Right. And what exactly you type in here, no big deal. Get close, right? And how big do I want it to be? What, 0.3? How does 0.3 look? Yeah, I just need to extend this box a little. There we go. All right, okay. And then you're going to add some other information in here, what the scale is, and I think it says preliminary layout over here, right? So that's all in the instructions. Now through there, this was from the last time I taught this class. It says it's lab 11. You can just write lesson 9 in here, but if you wrote lab 11, that's fine too. It doesn't really matter. The point is that you are making your own title block, and it's going to be okay. All right, through there. And if you want to get crazy now, if you want to hide this, you don't want people to see where your viewport is, you can go up here and snap that in. All right, now it's hidden behind your title block lines. All right, now no one knows where your viewport window is, where the edges of that are. When the only downside is it's harder to grab it when you get back into it. You're gonna have to use that shift spacebar trick again to find the next time. All right. So once you get the title block built, you're gonna come in here and set up a sheet manager for that. You're gonna plot this as well. Then coming out there using monochrome for that. And that'll be it. That'll be today's in class. So hopefully that's a good tutorial, a little background on excuse me, paper space and model space, and the best ways to look at those, and how to manipulate those, and how to get all those different viewports. Right. So back here to sheet 1. This is viewport fantastic, right? We could do all sorts of viewports on this, and get you some more practice on doing some plotting, which we haven't done in a while yet. Right. So now we're really moving into serious, production level stuff. This is stuff you're really going to be using, right? We had to learn all the basic commands, how to manipulate lines and draw things and trim them and all that. And now we're moving more into the production side of it, as we've progressed through the class. And this is the actual way that you're going to make professional quality sheets, and pop these things out if you can get an internship, and even if in your own for your own classes, if you wanted to use AutoCAD, this is a way to make them look very professional, right? So you can, and the nice thing is, you get these title blocks and these borders set up, you can just copy and paste those suckers, and in fact, the entire layouts you can copy over and put into a different drawing and use it multiple times with different model spaces and different drawings. So once you find the title block and the layout you like, it's super easy to move it into other drawings then, and use it multiple times. Okay. So that'll do it for lesson 9 today.